My story begins in the town of Zamość, Poland, where I was born on March 8, 1928. I don't remember much about my early childhood except that our family were members of a vibrant Jewish community, and my father had been a traveling musician. My mother made wigs for the local women who observed the tradition of cutting their hair very short when they married. She died in 1937 when I was 9 years old. A year later, my brother and I were sent to America to live with her sisters in New York City. Approximately 14 months later, the German army invaded Poland and World War II began. I remember how we used to sit around the radio and listen to the gloomy news from Europe as Hitler's armies invaded one nation after another. Except for one or two letters, we knew nothing about the fate of my father and sister and relatives back in Zamość. Were they alive? Had they joined the mass of refugees fleeing the cruelty and destruction of the Nazi forces? These questions lay heavy on my heart as the months and years passed. My older brother Murray was drafted into the Army as soon as he was of age and served in the Big Red One, the famous 1st Division that took part in the liberation of Europe. Murray served his country bravely and was awarded a Purple Heart after the Battle of the Bulge. I tried to enlist in 1944, but because I was too young and not a U.S. citizen, I wasn't allowed to volunteer. Finally, at age 17, I entered military service on June 5, 1945, 1 month after my brother Murray landed at Omaha Beach on D-Day. I was sent for basic training at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. 90 days later, I officially became an American citizen, contingent on my getting an honorable discharge at the end of my military service. I received advanced training as a radio technician at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and after several transfers between various Army camps and forts, was shipped to France. We landed in Le Havre and traveled in beat-up old railroad cars to a replacement depot that was formerly a Hitler youth camp near Marburg, Germany. In early February, I rode in an Army Jeep into a unique chapter of history. I was being sent to Nuremberg, where an international military tribunal would be prosecuting those who played a leading role in carrying out the orders that resulted in the Nazis' horrific campaign against civilization. The Nuremberg war crime trial was presided over by 4 sets of judges led by Lord Justice Lawrence of Great Britain. For weeks upon weeks, American, British, French, and Russian prosecutors made the world's case against 21 Nazis who were responsible for almost unbelievable acts of cruelty against helpless civilian populations, including the death camps where millions of Jews, gypsies, homosexuals, disabled persons, and others deemed unworthy of life in the Third Reich were systematically murdered. My job was to maintain the simultaneous translation system in the courtroom. The prisoners would nervously twist or bend the wires to their headsets, often breaking the connections. On several occasions, I found myself, a Polish Jew, fixing the earphones for Hermann Goering, the former head of the German Luftwaffe, cocaine addict, and the second most powerful man in Hitler's Third Reich. 12 of the accused were sentenced to death by hanging, 7 to life or 10 to 20 years in prison. 3 were acquitted. I remember our card game being interrupted by news that Goering had committed suicide in his cell the night before he was to hang. What sticks in my mind from having been witness to this historic event is how normal those on trial appeared as they sat silently in the dock. They all looked so normal, no fangs or outward signs of the evil that led them to commit such inhuman crimes against countless innocent men, women, and children, against civilization itself. To this day, I am deeply disturbed by the ordinariness of evil and the possibility of it re-emerging in unexpected places without warning. For me, this was the lesson of my wartime experience and my message to those who must remember, all of humanity.